Hi everybody, welcome to Arts Innovation in the subject of Artyology History Redesigned. This is a photograph I took years ago of Montezuma's castle between Phoenix and Sedona. Interesting place. It's kind of amazing how everybody focuses on things from around the world, the pyramids and the Stonehenge and all that, and don't really pay attention to what is around here, close at hand, and all that can be learned by just actually walking into these places. Obviously, they make them into tourist traps and try to sell you a bunch of stuff, but it's pretty fun to visit some of these places. They're quite beautiful, and it took a lot of work to do it. So my approach to history redesigned is to actually have these little artyologists, alien artyologists, that come to study Earth and find out about these little artifacts, OopARTS, which are out-of-place artifacts. So I have had quite a bit of fun doing this. Again, some of these characters are based on real people. The head criterion there is based on a friend of mine from school, and he became kind of a point of interest to me because he was so detailed about the different criteria that everybody had to learn when he was teaching the arts. So I kind of adapted his personality to this character. Let's take a look at what these three basic areas are. We're studying astronomy, religion, and archaeology. So literally these are the symbols I use for those three primary things. Obviously you can do more. This works out pretty good for me because of the characters I've already done. I've added some other characters that help us do the astronomy part, which I call the Ultrabots. So these are actually little robots that come from outer space, and again they are adapted from some of the other coursework I've done. I actually developed these characters when I was working at a special ed district with kids with disabilities, and I had done their actual caricatures, and people were offended by the fact that I was so accurate, and they were not very attractive. So I basically developed these characters based on various disabilities that each one of them has. I also named them with all of the particular basic syllables or basic vowels that all languages have. So literally with these 7 words you can get all the basic sounds in all the languages on the planet, which, as I've said before, 7,000 of them. These just happen to be spelled the way that we spell things. Also, I've color-coded them for music. If you remember the guitar strings I put in color, they actually represent particular colors of the rainbow in angstrom units per light and in nanometers. So for example, if you want to turn these into notes, then it would start from the left with orange is E, yellow is D, red is F, pink is actually closer to F, but it's actually G. You'd have a little more purple in a real G. It's kind of G flat. And then C would be the green. The blue is A, and Xeno up there, the pale blue, kind of moving toward green, is B. So again, it's a way that you can put information in these characters that mean a lot more than what you think they mean. They're not arbitrary, they're purposeful. And the reason I mention that is because there's a lot of artifacts that we're finding that also did the same thing. They symbolize certain things in other media that we are not aware of. So with that in mind, let's take a look at this. This is, of course, a famous Vitruvian pose by Da Vinci compared to a pose on a temple wall of the pharaoh. They're very similar. The pharaoh actually has longer arms, which gets into an interesting reason why. Basically, they were taller and they had longer arms, so they base their proportions a little differently than we do on a regular 6 foot tall average guy. The number 5776 is the number of units in the height of the pyramid, and we can go into that at another time in greater detail. But again, what it does is it represents the cycles of the moon. It takes 19 years for the cycles of the moon to match the cycles of the sun, and that's encoded in the pyramid. So there are lots of codes that we can look at, and if you do the math, you can turn it into the geometry and therefore the art. There's also a way that you can decode some of the hieroglyphs on temple walls to figure out what instruments, what songs they're playing on the instruments that are on the walls. And so we can get into that. In fact, I've done that in another book I wrote called Da Vinci Squared, which is Math and Music of the Last Supper. What you see here, and I'm not the only person that's done this, other people have studied this, I just did it a little differently. What you have here is you have the ceiling perspective coming down to Jesus's right ear. And then you have him looking down, and you'll see that at that point he's looking down at another perspective on the table. And if you measure the difference between them, you actually have the mathematical structure of the entire grid, which links sound to sight. So what he's done is he's encoded the geometry in such a way that if you understand the connection between the geometry and the music, you can play the painting. It's not unusual. A lot of people were doing that in those days. It's just kind of lost information, and you can't really decode it into the chromatic scale like we use now, because they weren't using it. They used a totally different structure called the ternary system. And again, I wrote a whole book about it, so I won't go into detail here, but I want you to take a look at these possibilities so you can learn some of these things yourself and create your own artwork and create your own stories and books. Now, again, that's a serious thing that you can get into, but since I've studied this so much and written books about this, I also did something that some people are irritated by, and that's having these little characters come to God's Bar and Grill and discuss the issues of the day or the issues of the month, whatever. And then I write things. So, for example, the guy's saying, "Mo, Easter eggs, please." Now, there's a double entendre there, because you can make fun of the celebration of Easter with eggs, which is a pagan ritual, which kind of ignores the Christian ritual of it. But also in that statement, "Mo, Easter eggs, please," as Easter eggs is a term used by a lot of people when they're trying to find secret codes in movies. So Easter egg also means it's a potential secret code. So the more we get into this stuff, especially the more we get into it for the sake of humor, then we can learn an awful lot and have fun doing it. So that's why I've included these characters in these rather serious situations. And again, it takes us back beyond writing, because there's so much we can learn just from the artyology that's out there that is typically not paid attention to. All right, thanks for listening. See you next time.